Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean and you're watching MLS Ireland does predictions for week 22. I know, week 22, it's only like yesterday the season started. Let's go. Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, this is MLS Ireland does predictions, and if you're new to this, hit that subscribe button. Put a wee comment in below on what you think your predictions will be for this week's. There's 14 games. I always try to say I'm going to try and fly through this, and the last 2 or 3 were been like 17 minutes, so I apologise. You just had to listen to me for about 2 minutes, a whole lot of that. But anyway, I may as well crack on with the first game, and that is New York City FC against Inter Miami. Now this one's going to be in the state of New York, obviously, because it's not New Jersey. But anyway, New York's coming into this with actually a good wee record at home at the moment. They beat New England, they beat Dallas and they beat New York Red Bull, which I was watching that game. New York Red Bulls didn't really offer much up front, but New York City got the win, and they're coming up against an Inter Miami team who probably got annihilated during the week there, but they beat Charlotte, who beat Chelsea. So when you think about things like that, New York City, Castellanos is probably last game, so I think there's going to be a lot of fight behind them. You know, we need to get this win over the line. So I'm going for like a 2-0 win, just because New York City are doing better at the moment. Inter Miami aren't very good away from home. All things considered, New York City are on a 3 games winning streak, so 2-0 that one. The next one is actually Columbus Crew against New England. Now, Columbus Crew at the start of the season, I was going to say, yes, they're playing New England. It's going to be an easy one for New England, pretty much. But in the last 6, Columbus Crew actually haven't lost a game. The last game they played was Cincinnati, where they won 2-0. And then they drew against Dallas, not Dallas, DC. They beat Chicago Fire. Drew against Philadelphia. Beat Toronto away and drew with Real Salt Lake. So when you're draw, win, draw, win, draw, win, draw, so you would suspect the next one's going to be a draw. But they're coming up against a New England Revolution team who, after the Champions League, started to pick up a wee bit of form, but then kind of collapsed. They drew against Vancouver. Drew against Cincinnati, got beaten by New York City FC 4-2, which wasn't great, and then got beaten by Philadelphia. So they're coming up against a informish team in Columbus Crew, so I went for like a 3-2. Columbus Crew are starting to pick that up. I think Nagby now has been kind of instrumental in their kind of bit of a surge this season, so they are looking good. And to be fair, I haven't seen much of them live, but I've seen clips in here and there, so they do look good at the moment. So yeah, 3-2. The next one is FC Cincinnati against Nashville. Cincinnati, who are still without Acosta because I think he's suspended still, got beaten last week 2-0, but their last 4 games after that were a draw, and then their last home win before that was a 1-0. So that's not too bad. Cincinnati, again, like against Nashville. Nashville are actually a good wee team. They did get beaten by LAFC 2-1 last week, but beaten since Seattle, got beaten by Charlotte. Granted, Charlotte's not too bad at home, and beaten DC United away from home, got beaten by Sporting Kansas City, which isn't great, and drew against Portland, which Portland are a strange team. But saying that, I'm gonna go for like a safe 1-1. I think Nashville have the capabilities. I think Cincinnati at home have the capabilities of scoring, but without cost, it's going to be an interesting one. I do think they could probably get a good result out of this one, but Nashville's probably a bit more defensive savvy than Cincinnati's. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go for 1-1. The next one is Orlando against Philadelphia. Orlando, not too bad. They got beaten during the week there against Arsenal, so they're probably coming into this game a wee bit, not fatigued, but you know what I mean. Then coming up against a very good Philadelphia team who are starting to get their season back on track, beating DC United 7-0, beating Inter, beating New England. So against an Orlando team in Orlando, it's probably going to be an interesting one, but I went for a 2-1 win to Philadelphia, just for the fact that Philadelphia are a very good team. Orlando are very sporadic at the moment, so Philadelphia 2-1 win. Again, Philadelphia are actually not too bad away from home too, so I'm going to stick with that one. The next one is Toronto against Charlotte, who beat Chelsea in penalties. So that was a good game for them. They're coming up against a good Toronto team slightly, who are still without their star player, but they got in another Italian basically just to cover for them. They've got the money to do that, so sure, why not? So they're coming up against a Charlotte team who are better than them, but Charlotte are strange away from home. Granted, they did win their first away game, I believe that was against Nashville, and that was a 4-1 win. So anyway, sorry, their away win was to Houston Dynamo, beg your pardon, 2-1, but they beat Nashville before that, but then got beaten by Inter. So I'll go for a 1-1. I know that's probably going to be a strange one. I think Charlotte probably have the capabilities of winning this game, but I think Toronto, with their main signings starting to come into the league, kind of coming into the team, I think they're going to start pushing up a bit. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. The next one is Wayne Rooney, who's against DC United, who have Raphael Morrison against Montreal. DC United, bottom of the league, got beaten 6-2 by Bayern Munich 2 nights ago. Coming up against a very interesting Montreal team who, when I say interesting, I didn't think they're where they are. Basically, I think they were top for a wee while, and then they just basically went off a cliff. They got beaten by Austin. Okay, Austin are not a bad team. Beat Charlotte, beat Seattle, got beaten by LA Galaxy 4-0, which was a bit surprising. Got beaten by Sporting Kansas City, which was a bit surprising. Then beat Toronto. Okay, you would have expected that. So they're coming up against a DC United team, probably with that new manager bounce, if Wayne Rooney's fucking starting to, because he's been there now 2 weeks, and I don't think he's managed the game. Anyway, Montreal 2-1 win. They're a better team. DC United are woeful at the back. Their defense is all over the place, and if you follow me on Twitter, you would see when they conceded a goal. I can't remember, against Toronto. Sorry, their last game. Who was it again? Yeah, against Minnesota. There were like 4 or 5 players marking 2, and one was keeping them on rest of the team on side because he was arguing with the linesman, and then they just scored from that. So I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to Montreal. The next one is Houston Dynamo against Minnesota. Now Minnesota I like because they beat Everton, and they're coming up against the Houston Dynamo team who won their last game against San Jose Earthquakes, but their record hasn't been great after that because it was Austin. They got beaten by Drew against Dallas, got beaten by Charlotte, beaten by Portland, but then beaten Chicago Fire. So they're beating teams kind of lower than them. So, but they're coming up against a Minnesota team who are probably going to be on a bit of a high at the moment because they beat DC United prior to that. They drew against Sporting Kansas City, beaten Vancouver, Real Salt Lake, and LA Galaxy. So they're not doing too bad. So that's why I went for a 2-1 win to Minnesota, because I think Minnesota are actually going to be a bit of a handful for Houston this time. So yeah, I'm going to go stick with my 2-1 prediction. The next one is Sporting Kansas City against LAFC. Sporting Kansas City, who are third from bottom. The last game that they won was against Montreal. Yeah, and got beaten by Real Salt Lake, beaten by Minnesota. So this is their first home game back since the 4th of July, and that was a bad result against the Red Bulls as well. So yeah, they're coming into this one against a very good team who have now Gareth Bale playing for them, Chiellini playing for them. So yeah, 3-1. I'm going to predict. I probably don't. They're probably not even going to get a goal, but I'm going to go for like a 3-1 win to LAFC. They're just a far better team, and they're probably going to be the champions at the end of all this, unless Austin or Philadelphia have anything to say about it. But I think LAFC has it wrapped up basically. So I'm going to for like a 3-1 win on that one. The next one is Real Salt Lake against Dallas. Now Real Salt Lake have kind of taken over for Dallas at the start of the season. Real Salt Lake were kind of above mid-table, whereas Dallas were like 5th or 6th for quite a while, and then that all kind of changed. Real Salt Lake starting to kind of unravel a bit, got beat by Minnesota and Atlanta, but beaten Sporting Kansas City the last time. So that was a good win. They're coming up against the Dallas team who haven't won a game in the last 6, so that's not good. They got beaten by drew against Austin, got beaten by New York City, and their last away game was a draw against Houston, 2-2. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Real Salt Lake. This game could be a Dallas 3-0 win. This is how mad MLS is. Like I was saying on my chat or on Twitter, it is from New York Red Bulls 33 points, 10 points between New York Red Bull, who is 5th, to Chicago Fire, who are 24th. That's 10 points. This is just changes constantly. This is mental. So yeah, I'm going to stick with my 2-0. The next one is Seattle Sounders against Colorado. I nearly say Orlando. But anyway, Colorado, they won their last game against LA Galaxy, which was a bit of a surprise. I would have suspected LA Galaxy to do a lot better, but they didn't, because it's LA Galaxy. And they're coming up against the Seattle team, who I suspected to do better, but they got beaten by Portland, got beaten by Nashville, got beaten by Chicago Fire, of all people. So they're not going to come into this game with a lot of hope. But I'm going to go for like a 3-1 win to Seattle, because they are a better team than Orlando. So Colorado. I fucking backed it up again. Colorado are, again, I know they beat LA Galaxy, but this is probably going to be a weird one for them. I think Seattle should start getting their season back together again, and this is the time they start doing this, pushing for an MLS playoff spot, and then usually winning the fucking thing. So yeah, I'm going to go for that. The next one is Vancouver against Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire, who have won their last 2 games against Seattle and Toronto, so that's pretty good results. So they're coming into this one a wee bit more. But Vancouver, strange Vancouver. Vancouver, a very hard team to predict. They drew against Portland, drew against Cincinnati, for the love of whatever. They got beaten by Minnesota, beat LAFC, drew against New England, and beat Dallas. So they're kind of punching above their weight, if that makes any sense. And they're coming up against the Chicago team, who are starting to find their feet. So I went for like a 0-0. Yes, I know. This is going to be a very exciting game. So I'm actually quite intrigued to see how that one kicks out, because Vancouver are a surprising team. They can't score goals. Chicago Fire are a very surprising team. They can't really score many goals. They've scored 21 this season in 21 games. So that's a goal average a game. So that's not great. The next one is Portland Timbers against San Jose Earthquakes. Portland, again, another team who are sporadic, but they're slowly moving up the rankings. They haven't lost a game in the last 6, which is quite surprising. Beating Seattle, beating Houston, beating Colorado, drawing against Vancouver in the last game they played. So they're coming up against the San Jose Earthquakes, who lost their last game, and that was against Houston. That was like a 2-1 win to Houston, so that's not a good result. Their last away win was against LA Galaxy, which was 3-2, and that was 2 weeks ago. So this is MLS. I'm going to stick with actually my prediction, which was a 1-1, because I do think Portland at home have the capabilities of winning this game, but I think San Jose have the capabilities, I say that a lot, of getting a good result out of this one. So I'm going to go for I'm going to stick with 1-1 in this one. The next one is Austin against New York Red Bulls. So this is like a top half, kind of top 5 game. So this is going to be an interesting one, a good one. I think Austin have the capabilities of winning this game, but New York Red Bull are a bit of a surprising team. I know they lost last week against New York, but they had the better chances, if that makes any sense. They pressed very well. Austin, they drew their last game, and that was against Dallas, 1-0, but their home record is pretty impressive. Even before that Dallas draw, they were winning games away from home too. So Austin are a good wee deal this season. So I'm going to go for like a 2-0 win to Austin, just because they're actually looking good. They're kind of, what's the word, balanced. They're pretty much balanced. I think Red Bulls just need basically a goal scorer, or somebody who can. They need to stop relying on Lewis Morgan, because Lewis Morgan can't do it all. So yeah, I'm going to go for like a 2-0. The next one is, and the last one is, LA Galaxy against Atlanta. LA Galaxy, the old dogs, basically, where everybody kind of thinks, yes, Atlanta was the cool dudes, and then they just dropped off badly, because they are 22nd in the league. They've only won the 1 game in the last 6, and that was against Real Salt Lake. So that's not good. They drew against Orlando, which is not a bad result. Got beaten by Austin. Drew against New York City. Got beaten by Red Bull, and beaten by Toronto, of all people. So they're coming up against the LA Galaxy team, who are now 14th. Lost their last 4 against LAFC, San Jose Earthquakes, and Colorado. So that's not great. But again, against the Atlanta team, who Do have Joseph Martinez back, but LA Galaxy, I don't think Hernandez is fit, or it could be, I don't know. But I'm going to go for my 1-1 prediction. I think LA Galaxy at home should get a good result. They really should. They need to start getting good results in this one. But I think Atlanta have a good striking force to probably cause them a couple of problems. So I'm going to go for at least a draw anyway. So, yep. Those were my predictions. I hope I didn't waffle on for too long. And I hope to see you on the next one. So, bye now. Get out of here.